welcome to the future of sales. We want you to fall back in love with software sales. In this episode, me, Dr. Tuuli and my colleague Chris Stevens talk about mental health and what it's like feeling really happy this week, but also what are some of those limiting beliefs that stop us from feeling good and making really good decisions. If you'd like to sign up and join us next week live in a safe space which is not shared on social media, we have a link for you to share. In the meantime, enjoy today's episodes and get your pen and paper ready. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Tuuli and it's a pleasure to have you here. This is the future of sales, and this is all about making sales more happy for the enterprise. In a software sales environment, quite often we can feel stressed, and that's actually the theme of today as well. So we're going to find some of those blocking ideas and mindsets, as yesterday was the World Mental Health Day. And with me today, and again, we'll have the same person here at least every other week. Can I introduce you to Chris? Chris, do you want to say a couple of words about yourself?
Yeah, hi Tuuli, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Chris Stevens, business traction coach, working very closely with Tuuli on the future of sales. So yeah, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Chris. And so, as I said today, we're going to focus very much on the mental well-being and on our mindset. And I think this is one where a lot of clients would come to me and say, oh, I want to grow my business, I want to increase the sales, whether that's number of clients or the deal size, etc. And when we come to it, go to sessions and understand what the underlying challenges are, quite often they might be something around leadership, but quite often they're around mindset. So we have all these limiting beliefs. Everyone's got them. I've got them. Chris, I'm sure you've got them as well. And today we're going to focus on very much of an exercise on that first. And then after that, me and Chris are going to have a conversation around mental health, what it's like being in software sales, and also how do we turn all of that into a very joyful experience? Because believe me, software sales, especially in enterprise, it can be so much fun. And that's really what we're here to do. We're going to make you fall in love again with software sales. So thanks for joining us today. Right, so the very first exercise, I'm going to put a little bit of background music on. And if you're interested in which pieces they are, I can share that as well. And then have you, Chris, you got some pen and paper? I did ask Chris to bring some different pens, so you can either have them in your brand colors.
Yeah, we got a
loving
few.
that. That's really good. And I do a lot of art, and I always feel that the paper that you use is quite important. You can use any kind of paper, from printing paper, etc. Obviously, try and think sustainably. So look at the sustainable marks on them. And but yeah, if you've got thicker paper, it always makes it feel a little bit better. And then you can use things like watercolors. But today, anything that you've got works. So let's open our minds and get to it. So I'm going to put some music on first. As we're listening to the music, you can close your eyes first before we do the actual artistic exercise. Let's take a couple of deep breaths in. Breathe in, and then breathe out all those worries that you might have. And let's breathe in again, lots of positivity. And breathe out. And once again, let's breathe in. Let's take a really deep breath in. And then you can start raising your arms as well as you breathe out. That's good. And the kind of calming breathing helps your mind get to the right place as well. And sometimes we forget to breathe. We're breathing all the time. That's the definition of life. And sometimes when we're stressed or otherwise, we've had a busy week, it's a Friday, we might have had lots of things happen. The breathing aspect might be something that we forget, the kind of really deep belly breaths. And we're going to then breathe in and raise our arms high up, really, really high up. And then try and breathe from the edge of the universe in. And as you breathe out, twist to the left. And these twists are really good for your brain, connecting both sides. And we breathe in, arms up. And then we turn to the left, to the right as we breathe out. And breathe in again, arms up. And as you breathe out, come back to the center. And then roll our shoulders up and back. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And then as you're looking into a distance, you can think about the intention for today. For me, the intention is really to identify and be aware of some of those negative or limiting beliefs, and then maybe start finding some of those solutions. Quite often that might come a day later. Chris, if you want to, you can share yours or write yours on a piece of paper. It's quite nice to have that intention for the day, because then you can come back to it, especially if you've written it down.
That was the limiting belief that we writing down on the page? Okay.
Or the intention. So if your intention for today, that could be finding your own limiting beliefs. So it could be something else if you want to share that.
Okay. Let me give it some thought.
Yeah. And for anyone watching, you can take your time and write your intention for today. And also for anyone listening to today's session, it's really a pilot. So there's only me and Chris. And with the ongoing sessions, we will record those, but obviously not share them anywhere, because those are only to be shared within the people who are attending. Right, is everyone ready?
Yeah,
and then we can, sorry.
Sorry, I've got my intention for the day. So when you're ready, let me know what I need to do with that.
Yep, you can keep hold of that and maybe look at it tomorrow, and then reflect on whether you made it there. So let's do the fun thing. Let's pick up your pens or pencils. And I'm going to start with, let's start with a really happy color. For me, yellow represents happiness, but I got a peach pen as well, which is quite nice. A little bit more on the action side as well. And yellow is a good color for creativity, by the way, as well. I'm going to pause the music for a moment. And first we're going to take a blank piece of paper, or the one where you've written your limiting beliefs or your intention for today. Apologies. And we're going to start writing down things about a particular occurrence or a particular customer or a particular colleague that we really like. So how does that make us feel? So focus on the happy aspects of your work. So let's think about a good interaction that might have been this week. So what's been really good?
Is there a specific place on the page that we need to draw this
Oh,
in?
good question. Good question. Let's put that in the very top of the page.
Very top center, left, right.
Let's put it in the top center. So I'm going to write down here what has been good. And this, you might write it down. You might do a bit of drawing as well. What's been really good. I'm actually going to make mine look like the sun, because this morning, particularly, the sun shines really, really nicely. So good things this week, and maybe some of those feelings that what you felt as you were in that situation or in those situations. And I'm hoping to see lots of virtual smiles when you go back to those feelings and relive that moment. And it might have been something where, for example, I had a difficult conversation or a difficult theme, but the conversation itself was really good and very constructive, and that actually made me feel really good. So it's not something necessarily that was purely good. Very few things are purely good or purely happy or purely joyous. For problem solvers, I would count myself as a problem solver. You might find happiness in those moments where something's been quite difficult, and then you turn that around or start turning that around to a good, something good. All right, and you can add a little bit of color, whatever your happy colors are, and we'll do that. So if you've got some of your emotions down as well, how that made you feel, that'd be really good. And you can always, doodling is actually really, just done a bit of doodling, making that, it started to look like a sun. It might look now, I don't know, it looks a little bit like an insect possibly, but a happy and colorful one. So we're then going to start thinking about an underlying, it might be either an underlying situation in your sales channel. So where we're focusing on software sales. So if you're thinking about your sales pipeline, most of us would always like to get more, right? We want either more pipeline, we either want to convert it quicker, or we want to increase the deal size of our existing clients. Those are the three very typical. Is there anything that you would add, Chris, as a typical challenge where people would come to you, for example, in the software sales arena and say, oh, I got this challenge particularly?
Yeah, I think what I've experienced in business has been mostly it's communication related issues. So generally it's because people don't really understand what's being asked of them. And then you can, couple that with the incorrect tooling, for example. So either not knowing how to use the stuff or not being set up correctly, not having the tools, not having the training to be able to do the correct job and understand how that sales is working. So yeah, I think that's probably what I would add to that.
Yeah, thank you. And this is why we also have Chris here, because he's really good on the human aspect of things, and also does lots of cool stuff with fixing IT hardware, by the way. So if you need any of that, go to him. So yeah, so they really the kind of and I think you went into the underlying issues more than I did. So on the surface, it might be about the monetary aspects and the financial. Let's sell more, let's sell faster, and so forth. But the underlying, it might be something else. It's most likely in an era where information, there is an abundance of information. It might be that human aspect where we really struggle, especially with all the different tools that we have. Like, there's so many different tools you could use. There's so many different frameworks you could adopt and so forth. It can feel that there is almost too much, right? So I won't ask you to write it down unless you really want to, but I want you to draw. So I'm going to pick a darker pen, maybe like a maroon color, and really kind of draw the shapes, if you can imagine that as a shape, how you feel in that situation. So if you think about one of the most pressing business issues on the surface, could be money related, it could be leadership related, and underlying that, what do you think is kind of, what is the underlying feeling that you have? So I'm going to make I think a square shape. I really like circular shapes. I'm going to make a square shape or a diamond. Well, diamonds are quite nice. Or spiky. I'm going to make that a spiky, a really dark color. And what these represents for you, that might be quite different. I need some black as well.
Really,
So,
where on the
oh,
page
so
do you
thank you, Chris. I'm going to put it
just
right underneath. And in fact, interestingly, purple and yellow are opposite colors as well, which is
okay.
I don't know
I'll
if
switch to
I did
purple.
that on
I don't
purpose.
have a maroon.
Yeah, I don't know if I did that consciously on purpose, but maybe unconsciously. So the kind of feelings, especially if these might be like really deep feelings and come from difficult situations or conversations. So you might not want to write that down, especially who they with and so forth. If you can imagine yourself going into that space, I'm going to put a little bit of music again for us. And going into that space, I'll put very gentle music. We don't want to relive it too much, but think about, what does that make you feel? It might make you feel a little bit small, or even a bit explosive inside. Self-awareness is a really key area where we think of the maturity of the humankind as civilization. It's really understanding, being aware of the feelings that we have, and remember that those are passing moments. Sometimes it can be quite hard to process them, and as we're kind of drawing those shapes, maybe you love black and you probably don't want to use black in that case, but I'm going to use dark purple and black and spikes. And what that we then want to start thinking about is, how can we maybe start breaking those up somehow. Red is one of my power colors. Love it. I've always loved red. And that's something where if I need extra strength, for example, or if I want to feel very confident, I will use red. Or if I just want to kind of feel that I want to get this done. For example, again, software sales, need to write an RFP. I'm going to put some red on and then just get it done. Sometimes be a death metal as well, but that's what I got from my PhD days.
Brilliant.
Had to write, hours and hours of writing, just need to get through it. Right, so we're going to start almost attacking those, but in a in a gentle way. So I'm going to draw a wave. We're just going to let those float. Let me show what I've done. So I'm just going to do a wave. So I'm going to let all these float away, so that we can start allowing this. We can make that a conscious decision to help those start flowing away. We then have to also think about, where do those feelings, which are in fact, if you think about it, they are probably some of the reasons why we're not always feeling that great, right? So if we think about a target, what we want to get to, if we want to replicate their really good feelings, their really good and great successes, a lot of the negative emotions, they actually take more time and effort than we'd like to maybe admit. And so we're going to start letting those float away. And the way we do this is we're going to think about, Chris as well, if you think about what's kind of stopping you from getting to that success. If you think about an enterprise sales success, either thinking to the current ones that you're working on, opportunities, or to previous opportunities that you worked on, what is something that's stopping you personally? And we don't need to answer it to the audience here, but start kind of writing down. You might want to swap to a pen. Start writing down things maybe originally, I put the pause the music, you might have originally, maybe, especially in hindsight, you might have originally blamed an external party, you might have blamed the environment. So let's get those out of the system first. So if you think about, again, those difficult situations, maybe this week, we all have peaks and troughs every single week in software sales. It is fast paced. We're currently in Q4. If you look at the calendar quarters, we want to start closing a lot of sales by the end of the year. And yes, we do have 2.5 months left. That's really good. However, that time is only going to diminish. And it's always a rush between Christmas and New Year. You want to get those. I mean, Christmas and New Year should really be a time for family, right? And that's where we want to get to. We want to give you that time and space to be with your family, to celebrate the holidays, and be able to light a candle and just breathe, right? But realistically, too often we have to then work through RFPs, that's request for proposals, or we have to close a client deal, etc. And so what we're doing now is we still have time. We're trying to make that time and make that effort now, so that we can be prepared for that, and especially then the following year as well. So not repeating some of those same behaviors. So that was quite a long introduction to what I was going to give you as an exercise. We're going to write down things which might have been what we think is what's not right, like what's kind of stopping us from getting to that happy place, getting to that success. What might help is using the bottom part of the paper. So I'm going to write, what is stopping me from getting to my target? And you can see that here. So I've circled the text, and then creating, and start, if it helps you, you can either write anything that comes to your mind. You can also start writing external and environment. And I'm going to write internal equals personal. And that's the really deep stuff that you might find a few things today, but then as you sleep, you might then in your sleep get some more ideas. So external factors that might be stopping you from getting there. that could be, for example, that could be leadership. So you might think sometimes there's something about the leadership you don't like, and in a management position yourself, that could be the board of the business, or that could be your immediate line manager. It could be the customer. You think there's something wrong with the customer, individual, so the organization, and then write down what those might be. Before I go to the next section, I'll let you take your time on that one for a couple of moments.
Would you like me to share? I'm happy to share anything. This is about growth, so sometimes we're going to have to let kind of personal things hang out so that we can we can get to a point and we can actually help. So should I show you my page? I wonder if I can. Is that okay?
Yeah, if you'd like to, yeah.
I don't know if
I thought you were still in the external factors. Ooh, love that. Good colors. I think because you blur in your background, we can only see some of it. There we go. You might have to read it out loud. It looks pretty. It's a bit blurred.
Okay. So I think I'll focus on the last little piece that we did, which was essentially the hindrances. And I think what I've found in my life as a youngster, it was always a case of I was very much a go-getter. I could make things happen, and we'd figure something out and just run with it and just make it work. And as I've got a little bit older, married, 3 kids, your decision making becomes less, how do you say, rash, because you've got a whole lot more to think about and how it impacts the rest of the family. So for me right now, it's always been a case of procrastination, but not because of the lack of will to do something, but more of the fear of going down the wrong direction for too long. Because they say, all the experts say you have to have direction. You say, fine. If I've decided that this is the direction and that direction is wrong, and I travel down that direction for a year, I'm a year in the wrong direction, which means I'm so far from where I was. So I think the big thing for me, and perhaps other people have the same issue, that's why I thought it was worth sharing, is that's why I drew the wave was the little man there surfing is me. We're riding this wave of kind of procrastination, but also on this journey to try and figure out, is this the right direction? And then watering those kind of plants and letting them grow. So yeah, I thought I'd share that.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. Can you think of any, or I don't know, have you written any kind of environmental, and I'm talking about the environmental more holistically, not the climate, but it could be the climate. So climate could be one, the environmental factor, but it could be things like political, or it could be that, for example, new trends such as AI is disturbing and disrupting the industry. And so we feel because it's very quick and easy to create a new product. So you might be an established player in the software industry. However, then you see all these different competitors. You might not just see 1 or 2, but you might see 10, you might even see 100. If you think of the ESG software space, for example, it used to be, 3 years ago, a couple of players, and now there's literally hundreds. And it's because we can, it's a lot quicker to create code, basically. It's a lot quicker to scale. The internet gives you, the internet's been around for a long time, but the different tools, as you mentioned, and the agility and people's perspective as well on what to buy in an enterprise situation is not necessarily the bigger players anymore. It could be other ones. So there's a lot of different factors I think are stopping you from getting to that happy place beyond floating those negative ones. And then there is we mentioned the external factors already, what those might be. I want to kind of drill more into the personal ones. Chris, thank you for sharing what you shared about kind of taking into account really the kind of the self-awareness and other things which impact. But if you think of your situation as you're listening, write down, or you might draw, but what's something that you're assuming in yourself that's stopping you from getting there. And what I mean by that is you might assume that your client will not pay you what you're asking them, right? Now, you might think as a defense saying, oh, I know my client's not going to pay that, but I would challenge that and say that's an assumption, right? What are some of the other assumptions that you're assuming? You might also assume that you don't have the right level of access to the right people. You might assume that your product's not as competitive in terms of functionality, in terms of perceived quality. What are some of those things that you're assuming? And this is a really big thing, because most things that our brain tells us is actually assumptions, and it could be proper lies that our brain is telling us. So we want to challenge all those different thoughts we get. I actually can't remember it off my head, but Chris, do you know how many thoughts we have every day? I know it's in tens of thousands or more. I can't remember. However, we get a lot of thoughts in our minds all the time. Our minds are not tricking us on purpose. I'd like to think our minds are quite, gentle and good for us. But we do have a lot of these assumptions. Another assumption, and in fact, this is a really personal one. So I've been talking about getting this feature sales in my mind. It's been going on for a very, very long time. Ever since I created this Reach Your Sales Target program, this is now over 5 years ago, I thought, would be great to have these sessions online so that people from different companies could get together and really think about this as individuals and not only as part of their business, because again, we then get the hierarchy in a conversation that we don't have in an environment like this, where we're on the same page basically, or on the same level. And then Chris, you asked me earlier this week or last week, what's actually stopping you from starting this now? And I was like, oh, that's indeed. And that really made me think. And I think that day or that night, I was like, right, I'm just going to set this up. I created a Google Calendar invite. I was like, there's no going back. We're doing this every other week. We're going to focus on the exercises. That's today. And Chris would often be leading this. And then next week, and then every other week going forward, that's more on the theory. That's something where you don't need paper and pen. You can just listen to it as an audio, either live or afterwards. But that's something to kind of, we're doing meditation, getting you to the right mindset, and then we'll talk about and share information. But yeah, so that was a limiting belief for myself. And yeah, when you said it, I thought, it was really good.
I'm glad that I've had that impact. And I think, coming back to the first part of what you said was writing down the good feelings. I shared my feelings with you about feeling valued was very important to me. And that's the relationship that you and I have got with the work and everything like that is very much on the value side, which I really appreciate. So thank you for that. And thank you for the kind words. It's good to know that I'm, making some wake in my, what I'm doing.
Thanks. Right. So everyone listening, by this point, I'm hoping that you're getting an idea of what are some of those things that you're assuming. I did want to keep this pilot episode a little bit shorter. We would typically do a 45-minute session, start at 9:10 and finish by 5 to 10, so that you've got 5 minutes before your next call. And on a Friday morning, UK time, you'll have had Monday through Thursday. We all have so many things going on. And one of the good things that I've seen in the recent years is people have fewer meetings on a Friday. Even some companies give you a day off or give you half a day off, which is amazing. And so hopefully we can create this reflection time on a Friday and really get us to a really happy place for the weekend. As we all know, it can be really hard to switch off from work for the weekend. And by Friday afternoon, you might still have some difficult conversations or some intense, things that you've got to get done by the weekend. And I just think Friday's a good time to sit back, reflect, and get your mind back to a good place. So next week, we're going to focus on a meditation, meditative exercise. Have a really good time next Friday as well. It's going to be less of an exercise for you to write down next week. It's going to be more of a conversation, things to get you inspired and get you again ready for the weekend and ready for Monday and start feeling really happy about software sales again. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.